All right, guys, welcome back to the Atlantic Strong podcast. I'm your host, Jordan Dickens, and tonight we have multiple time Atlantic Canada's Strongest Man winner and multiple time uh, Canada's Strongest Man competitor, Grant Connors. Good to have you on, Grant.
That's good to be here.
So let's start at the start, or well, let's not start at the start. Let's start at the end because you just won Atlantic Canada's Strongest Man again this year at Prime back in October. And how many times have you won that now?
That was my 12th.
12.
Yeah.
And how many times did you go to Canada's Strongest Man?
9.
9 times.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, 10. 10 times.
And what was your highest placing at Canada's Strongest Man?
4th.
4th.
Yeah.
So you're almost 47 now.
Yeah.
When did you start competing in strongman?
2004 was my first Atlantics that I did. I had been training a little bit before that, some very minor local shows, but 2004 was my first big year that I decided I was going to give it a go. It was close. For my first year, not really knowing much, it came down to the last event, and Brad Carty and myself actually were tied. Actually, I think I was ahead by half a point, and basically whoever won the Farmers Walks won. And at that time, he was a way better athlete than me, and he just smoked me. So the right guy definitely went that year, and I believe he went, and at that time did our best finish ever for Atlantic Canada. And then I went the year after and tied that finish. So,
had you weight trained a lot before you started competing in strongman? Like, when did you start training lifting?
I was in 1997. I touched my first weight for the first time. I was 26, 27 years old. Very, very small. I was like 155, 160 pounds. More of a long distance triathlon runner kind of guy than I was anything else. I used to do pole vault and things like that. So I was really skinny.
The rest is history, pretty much.
That's right.
So you started pretty late.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I didn't do my first powerlifting competition until I was 27, but I had trained a lot in the years prior to that, playing football in high school and playing in the men's league, and did some MMA fights. So I trained a lot for that, but I didn't really get into powerlifting strongman until I was 27. I had dabbled before that because I'm actually from the same town as a mutual acquaintance, Jeff Lundberg.
Oh, yes.
Who he competed in strongman, in those early 2000s at the same time that you started.
Oh, yeah. He was right there with us.
So he's quite a bit older than me too. So he had come back to New Brunswick when I was 18, 19, and he was training at the rink in Grand Bay, New Brunswick, and he had a tire and a yoke and farmers and a log, and I dabbled a little bit then, but didn't really get into competitive lifting for about 10 years after that. So you first competed at Atlantics in 2004. What year did you first win it?
2005.
2005. You won it the next year.
Yeah, and I won it for nine straight years, and then I gave it up for a little bit, and I let it go. Decided that I was going to back away. I think I took a year off, came back, won it again. Took a year off, came back, won it again, kind of thing. And then I took a couple of years off, and then I came back and won it again. But
what was your training like in those 9 years that you won it straight?
It,
Did you have
it,
a good group of guys to train with? Did you have a lot of equipment?
we had a great group of guys, and I had I think it was 2005, 2000, yeah, 2005. I bought my house in Kentville, and if you drove by my house, every time I competed in a competition, and I competed a lot. I think in 2005 I did 23 competitions, and that was all over Canada. And every time I went to a competition and seen an event that I never seen before, I went out and got that piece of equipment, whether it's a big lunk of chain or whether it was a big giant Viking press, whatever it was, I went out and I made it. So my backyard, if you didn't know what it was, it looked like a junkyard, but it was a complete outdoor training facility for strongman. We had everything. We even had a car that still ran that we drove some handles in the back bumper and we used to carry it for a wheelbarrow. So we had everything. And the guys would get together every weekend like clockwork. We had 4 or 5 of us, myself, Tim Pinio, Chris McRitchie, Justin Coxhead, Jay Smith was one of the ones at the time. We had a lot of guys at that time, and Peter Stevenson. We all got together and we were a great group of guys. We were all pretty good friends and we all just trained and pushed each other really hard. And, and as time went on, more and more people came to train with us. We ended up getting Daryl Krause, who won the 105 strongest man for Canada. And I think that was back in 2006 or 2007. Jonathan Scooten, I think he finished top 6 at Canada's Strongest Man. And Danny Frame, he finished very well at Canada's Strongest Man, finished second behind me in the Atlantics many, many times. And so, yeah, we had a lot of great guys that came out to train with us over time.
It's funny. I was watching those old Hugo Gerard videos, and talking 15, 16 years ago, at that time, if you got 4 or 5 guys training together, where the sport was still so kind of still so young in popularity, if you got 4 or 5 good guys training together, they would quickly become the best 4 or 5 guys in a pretty big area.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he had a couple guys training with him, and then they would end up being first, second, and third at Quebec Strongest Man and in the top 5 at Canada Strongest Man every year.
Yeah. The Quebec athletes they're usually top notch above most other athletes, and I don't know, I can't speak to what that is. I know I've been close to several of them, and their training is just they go hard all the time, and they're such a big group and they're such a competitive group that when you have guys that are of equal strength training together and pushing each other all the time, no one wants to lose to the guy behind them. So they're always pushing harder and harder and harder. And I truly believe that that's the secret to their success, is the fact that their pool of athletes is so great to draw from and to feed off each other, that everyone wants to be that top dog. So you just can't ease up for a second or the next guy's up there. So
Yeah, I think looking at the state of strongman right now, uh, at the highest level, you look at the guys in the UK. There's 10 or 12 top guys in the UK that on any given weekend, half of them are training together.
yeah, absolutely.
Like you might have, they might have Luke Richardson might be staying at the Stoltman's house for the weekend to
Yeah.
train together, and Terry Hollins and Mark Felix train together all the time. I think that is a big part of why you see these groups or people from one geographic area rise to the top. And I think in Atlantic Canada right now, that's not really happening because there's only a couple guys in St. John. There's only a couple guys in Moncton. Now for people that are actually going to the open competitions and competing, there's only a couple in Halifax area. Thankfully, guys like Patrick, the redheaded guy, that group, that Raw Power Nova Scotia group, they're starting to get a few people all training together. But I think we need more of that.
Oh, absolutely. It's what pushes you, and I think back to those years and all those years of training, we trained through weather that I would never even dream of training in now. We used to stand on my porch and it would be minus 30 degrees outside and we'd have a log set up and you know, 4 or 5 of us in the porch, and okay, you're next. We'd run out, do our reps, and run back in, and we'd be making fun of the next guy that's going out because we know he's freezing to death, you know. But we were doing it clockwork every Sunday. We never missed a practice.
Yeah, when I years ago when I was training with Jeff, just starting to get into some of this stuff, he was in a changing room at the rink in Grand Bay, but then hockey season started. So they booted him out of the changing room, and he had all of this stuff outside the boards in the corner all winter, right next to the Zamboni door. So we would go out and train in the hockey rink right next to the ice, next to the Zamboni door, which they usually left open all day.
Yeah.
So we were doing tire flips, and his some of his stuff was custom built that started way too heavy for me, so I couldn't even touch it. But yeah, I remember those days next to the hockey rink. And then, this summer training for Atlantic Canada's Strongest Man and training for Picto, uh, we had a really hot summer in St. John. So we were doing tire flips at Derek Bryan's house. It had to be 35, 36 degrees doing tire flips and stuff outside. And I think that's good because a lot of these competitions end up being outside in the summer anyways.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. I'd like, and it's funny, you know, I remember in my younger days, 2006, 2007, the heat used to just exhaust me. Now, as I get older, I love it. The hotter it is, the better I perform. Like my body's looser, and I'm watching these young guys, and they're dying in the heat, and I know exactly what they're feeling because I felt it when I was young. But it's just funny as I get older, and I don't know, it's just conditioned to it over the years or what, or maybe my body needs that lubrication. But the hotter the better. When I went to Florida for the Worlds, I felt amazing. My body was loose and it felt fantastic. It's one of those things. I think a little more warm ups now than it used to be, but you know, people need to treat it like a marathon, not a race, for sure. I mean, it's a long haul for most.
Yeah, I mean, even just training day in day out is a long haul. But if you get a competition with a lot of competitors and a lot of different events, we're talking 8, 9, 10 hours sometimes.
Yeah,
I did Pictou County Strongest Man this summer, and they had to do it outside the arena. That was great because it was wide open.
yeah,
You could just take a picnic table or take a spot by the wall and spread all your shit out. And some of these competitions that I've done, powerlifting and strongman, you can hardly breathe in the warm up area. There's so many people in so little space.
yeah. And you know, the Atlantics this year was kind of like that. It's great to continue it on, but when you're inside in a compact space like that, yeah. And luckily, we didn't have a massive amount of athletes there. So, but even with the few that we had, it was still cramped. So I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
Um, yeah, Atlantic's, shout out to Prime Strength for being able to put on a show. It was certainly a detour from what Atlantic Canada's Strongest Man usually is, which is at the Tide Fest and multiple days, and definitely a lot more competitors and outside. Um, but I had a really good time. I think that Prime put on a pretty good competition. It went off without a hitch. I mean, there was only, with the women, there was only 9 of us competing total, so it went pretty fast. But Dave and Aaron Prime, they put on a good show, and I'm glad that they were able to do that.
yeah, they did a fantastic job, and being their first really big show too. You know, we did the amateur show not long before that, which was actually their first competition they hosted, and that one without a hitch as well. And yeah, I mean, the gym is fantastic, and to have gyms like that to be able to train at, let alone hold competitions when, you know, let's face it, if it wasn't for that competition, and I think there was another one at Raw Power, nothing would have been happening. So
Yeah.
it was good to have them, and it's good to keep it going. And I know it was a tough time for everybody, but no, it went really, really well, and you know, I'm glad it continued to go on.
Yeah. Yeah, the um, so you won your 12th this year. Um, you came first or second in every event except for the log press.
Yeah.
And what happened there? Because I actually I think I'd gone right before you, and I think I was out back. You were nursing an injury or something like that.
Yeah, I've got. I need a shoulder replacement. So I honestly, I don't even know how I'm continuing to lift with my shoulder the way it is. In training, it's horrible. I try to get through training, and 3 days after I do any kind of shoulder workout, I'm basically useless. But I've been working, trying to get momentum back and trying to get the movement back in it. Um, Unfortunately, I'm older, but I'm too young for a replacement right now. So it's basically they're telling me that just to stop doing it, but I don't think that's going to happen at least for another year. So my goal is now shoulder press always was my thing. It was my biggest event. I was the best at it, and I pushed myself very, very hard in shoulders. And I always wanted to have, deadlift and log press were the two big events for strongman. And my deadlift wasn't as good as it should be, but my log press, I still hold the Atlantic record of 418, and I set that in 2010. And of course, now I'm struggling to be able to press a 200-pound log on a good day. So my goal is by November of next year is to be up over the 300 mark again. And the thing is, with my shoulder the way it is, if I can get one, I can normally get five. But it's just getting that first one to break free and allow me to do it. But yeah, it's been a mess for a while now, and the whole side of my body now is kind of a little smaller and tighter than the other side. So I've been working with some massage therapists and physiotherapists trying to loosen everything up. And I got a year to try to get it back and try to get something working with it again anyway. But
Yeah. Speaking of your best lifts, how about you give us a rundown of your all-time bests in squat, bench, deadlift, log press, um, strongman events. What have you accomplished over the years?
so as far as like your basic bench, squat, deadlift, in a raw meet, I've done a gym raw bench press of 600. In an actual meet with a pause, it's been 555 was my max. I had 748 or 744 raw squat, no knee wraps, with a torn hamstring was the biggest recorded squat in a comp that I did. Um, and as far as deadlift, I think my 777 was my recorded in comp. I've pulled 822. Um, I pulled 804 in comp, but dropped it before the lockout, so my grip got it out. But as far as suited wise, um, bench shirt. The first time I ever wore a shirt, I put up 752. I was in a competition in Florida and finished dead last. It was, I said I was. It was. It took me almost 3 attempts to convince myself to bend my elbows. I thought I was going to die. But I got it and it actually felt good, but it was literally last place. People warming up with the weight I benched. And so I did a 1,050, 18-inch deadlift, 1,050 or 1,048, right around there. And side handles, I've pulled 1,100 for reps on a frame. Things like yoke, I think I still have the yoke record with 1255 for the 29 feet with no drops. That was horrible. I felt that for months. And I don't think I'd ever attempt it again. I think the most I've attempted is close to 11 in the last couple of years. And that feels about like the 1255. So I've made a lot. I think right now, to look back, I still hold the world record in the crucifix hold. No one's come up. I don't think they really do it anymore for anyone to beat it.
No.
Um, I think there are some very, especially in the worlds now, there's some very capable athletes that I think would shatter that. But in 2007, Hugo Gerard actually held that record, and we did a Canada-wide comp where we invited the best athletes in Canada to our local show here in Kempville. And he came out, and it was 3 pounds heavier than the weight they used at the Worlds. And he shattered his world record. And I was right after him, and I shattered his. I like to say I shattered it. I beat it, so beating it, shattered it. But yeah, it was I think 99 seconds was with the 30 pounds per side, and so it well. We I think right now there's 27 Atlantic Canadian records in my name. Um, I still, I think, hold the current deadlift hold record. 2 minutes and 15 seconds for that. Um, that I can't even describe what that feels like at the 2 minute mark, but
Well, we did the 700-pound frame hold at Atlantics, and at 30 seconds, I think I came in last or second to last because at 30 seconds, I felt it pulling on my biceps.
yeah.
Oh, should it feel like this or shouldn't it feel like this? And is anything bad going to happen if I keep holding it? And so to go any longer than that and any heavier than that, I don't think I could describe how that would feel.
Well, there's stages, and once you go through those stages, it starts with the bicep, and then it actually goes away. Like the stretching in the bicep for probably 10 seconds will change to the shoulder, and then the stretching from the shoulder will then go back to the forearm. So it's a constant, and then it hits the trap. So as time goes on, and it always comes back to the biceps and forearms. Um, but I learned over time, just something simple like a knee sleeve over the bicep doesn't give it any support whatsoever, but your mind is supported, and it tells you that there's something there protecting it, and it seems to take that bicep pain away.
Yeah. See, training for that, I had only done it with my farmer's handles, and I had done more weight for longer than I did in the competition, but I think the frame and just being out further
Wider,
is
yeah.
what made that pull on my biceps, which kind of startled me a little bit at about 30 seconds. Um, so had you gone to international level competitions past Canada's Strongest Man in your career?
Yep. Yeah. Well, I've competed against. Uh, we did a lot of shows in Quebec that were North American shows, and all the top athletes that Thor's competed in Quebec. Brian Shaw. They've all done the show in Quebec, and so I think that was one of my best finishes. The likes of Kevin Nee. We had some really big name guys at the show. With the guy from the British guy, that's Graham Hicks. These guys were all there, and we beat every single one of them. The top four were Canadians, and I was in that group. And yeah, the Quebec shows, they have the big show at Warwick every year, and it's always been North American contest. Hugo Gerard, when he ran it at the Hot Air Balloon Festival, used to be the North American contest. So all these athletes you see are the top guys in the world. They were getting invited to these shows, and I was fortunate enough for probably 5 years to be able to compete with these guys at that level. And it's a great experience, when you're standing between two 6'8", 400-pound men, and they're making you feel pretty tiny, right? So,
Looking at the state of strongman in Atlantic Canada right now, do you think there's anybody here that's going to make that jump to the next level in the near future?
I don't know. It's just there's guys with the ability. It's whether or not they're willing to do it. To throw his name out there, Joey. I mean, Joey's a big, strong, young kid. Man, he's got all the tools. He just needs to get his mind where it needs to be, and I think with proper training and dedication, and if he dug in for the long haul after 5 or 6 years of solid training, he'd give just about anybody a run. Like he's so strong. It's just he just needs to figure it out and put it together.
Yeah, yeah. I've been at a couple competitions with him so far, and and what he can do is really impressive. Um, and it makes you wonder what's stopping him from going further. I mean, he's pretty young too. I think he's only 24, 25.
Yeah.
So the sky's the limit. Another guy that's really impressed me is Matt Sartoris from Pictou.
Yes.
He's only 23 years old.
Yeah.
He's
He's got
only
a he's got the long levers and he's got that frame to build on. Him at 310 pounds, I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine it.
There it is, Matt. You heard it. 310 pounds. No more skinny Matt Sartoris. Gain 50 pounds. Come on.
Yeah, it's just he has all the tools, and I think in a few years, definitely no question.
Yeah, his deadlift for only being 23, for being around 250 pounds, like he's knocking on the door of a 7 plate deadlift. His moving events, like I think he's got the all time he's got the all time record for the Pictou County Strongest Man for the Farmers Walk, I think, from last year. Even his log was really good this year at Atlantics. His carry was really good. His yoke, I mean, the only thing holding back, I think, on the yoke is his weight.
Yeah, I think once he builds a bigger core, he's a tall athlete. So to be lean like he is at that tall, I mean, the yoke's going to really find a weakness in him.
Yeah,
Um, and yoke is a huge core event. I mean, you look at guys like Marius Pujanowski and stuff; they were not fat. I mean, I'm not considering a big core fat. I'm just that thickness and filling out, and that'll come. I mean, he's got so much time if he wants to stick with it. Like I say, I mean, I've been doing this for 22, 23 years, and if it wasn't for my shoulder, I'd still be in prime shape.
yeah. Um, do you think it's time for there to be some sort of organizing body in Atlantic Canada for all this stuff?
Well, we kind of do. The problem is, so we have over the years, there's been a couple different times, and I've been involved with a couple of them. We've tried many different things, and the hard thing with getting something like that involved, and now we've got Eileen Deploy who stepped in, and she's kind of helping us out with the federation a little bit now, and she's a great athlete, great spokesperson for just about everyone. And I think people like her getting involved will really help the sport and Mark and these gyms, and it just helps it. So before we had our association, we ran a lot of shows through our association, a lot of big shows, and um, but like I say, you do something so long on your own by yourself type thing, it tires you out. And my wife and I basically put on uh, probably 200 shows over the years, and we're the ones doing the sponsorship, lugging the contest weights, doing everything, right, finding our helpers and stuff, and it's a lot. So the biggest thing with doing it that way is I wanted to make no cost to the athletes, right? So no matter what show we did, the athletes never really cost them money to compete, and that was the lure for me when I first started. My very first strongman competition I did, I won one event, and it was the forward hold. We had to hold 40 pounds of apples out in front. And all the top guys, Jamie Peppard, Shane Murphy, from across Canada, all the top guys at that time were there, and I destroyed them all. And but I finished dead last in every single event but that one. I won $100, went on my way, and I was hooked. So I came back the next year, and my goal was to win 2 events or do better. But and that was the thing, like the athletes always came away with prizes or prize money, and now we're still here like that in Atlantic Canada, and my worry is if a federation starts like the one that's kind of running now, it's less for the athletes and more for the federation, and that's what I don't want to see happen. Unfortunately, in Canada now, I think that's the route that it's headed. And your top 3 athletes always do well, but everyone else just kind of thanks for coming out type thing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's hard, if you're doing all the travel and all the preparation. I said, if you give a guy $50 and pay his gas money and he's happy, right? I mean, even if he finished last, I mean, at least it's not out of pocket to come. And that we've always kind of seen it that way. But I mean, times are getting tougher too. Sponsors are getting harder to get for this stuff, and there's more athletes now too, and more weight classes. So things are changing, and I think with Mark and how he's doing his competitions, and with Eileen coming on and helping us with the federation we have now. Um, and that's the biggest thing, is keeping it to the athletes. So regardless of what's in place, whether it's us stepping away and someone else doing it, it has to be about the athletes and not about the person running it. And I've always said that from the start. And that's back when Hugo Gerard used to run it. His shows were like WWE contests. You were treated like a rock star. Everything was paid for. You treated like gold. You come out the theme music. It was about the athletes, and it was like a production. Like I say, now it's a numbers game, right? It's just trying to get as many numbers as you can, and the Canadian athletes are better now than they've ever been. So I guess that's a plus side to it. But the showmanship of the sport has really taken a back seat compared to what it used to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's what I think it's going to take is it's going to take a big show with some sponsorship money put on in a place where people are going to come to watch.
Yeah.
And I love Mark. I love Renfrew. I love what they're doing and putting on competitions for us. I love Prime Strength. But until you can get enough money to put on a show in, at Harbor Station or the Beaverbrook in St. John, or at the Forum in Halifax, or a place like that, and get people watching, it's not really going to grow the sport that much, unfortunately. But the way things are going internationally, hopefully that'll trickle down. Like, I think interest in the sport from a spectator perspective has never been higher, because of the way Rogue is streaming the Arnold and the bigger shows. I think that may have a trickle down effect if we can have more shows in Atlantic Canada.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And with the weight classes and the women's division, there's so much more to offer. There's so many more people to bring in. And with those people are family and friends and people who see it and are interested in it. And, people are kind of worried sometimes. They want to try it, but they're scared. And once they actually try it, they realize, man, this is pretty fun.
Yeah.
And I haven't met anyone yet that hasn't come out to try it that hasn't stayed with it. So it's kind of one of those sports, and the camaraderie in it is amazing, and everyone tries to help each other, and it's it's functional living and lifting, instead of just basically standing there lifting a bar or something, right? So, and it was my appeal in the beginning, to do something that at the time very few people could do. How many people could pull a transfer truck or flip a car? So that was the appeal factor to me, is I just wanted to be that.
Yeah. Hopefully, who there was 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's four strongman competitions in the Maritimes this year in 2020. Sorry, 5, because they did PI Strongest Man. Newfoundland had 2. They had Newfoundland Strongest Man, and they just had the Battle of the Beasts last weekend. And talking to the promoters, they put on a really good show. Had a really good time. They actually they live streamed it. No spectators, but they live streamed it, and it worked really well. I caught a little bit of it. So, if we can have 7 shows during the COVID-19 pandemic, hopefully 2021 we can have 10 or 12. I know that I'm going to host New Brunswick Strongest Man in April in St. John. There's talks now of maybe doing a summer show in Shediac. I'm going to talk to Zane Nicholson from PEI the best log presser who looks like your dad in Maritimes, and he's going to promote 2 or 3 shows of PEI. The organizing body in Newfoundland is going to host at least a show a quarter leading up to their Newfoundland Strongest Man. So I think 2021 is going to be a big turnaround for strongman in Atlantic Canada, and hopefully everything goes well.
Yeah, I'd love to see it kickstart again. I know we lost over the years. We lost, especially here in Nova Scotia. You know, Nova Scotia had the bulk of the competitions and all of our local fairs and stuff. You know, I think Berwick was the first competition I seen, and the first one I did, and they were at the time the longest running contest. You know, all the other shows were dropping out, and they were still going. And then eventually they just dropped out, and that was one of these contests where it was always fun. You know, they always had a great crowd. It was a great venue, and everyone was treated very, very well. You know, there's times, I think one time we had 19 athletes compete in that contest. That was our first, I think, 3-man team contest that we put on, and things like that. And then Middleton Heart of the Valley Days, that was another one that was very big that Jamie Peppered run. And, you know, so things like those shows are kind of gone away now, and, you know, they're missed. They were the local competitions. They were fun, and they weren't crazy heavy, but gave everyone the opportunity to come out. The appeal to things like Berwick and stuff, it was heavy, but someone come out of the crowd and still attempt and try it. And because without those shows, you're never going to get new athletes. You know, when I started, if we were doing 1,000-pound yoke, I would have never come back again. You know, that was just the way it would have been.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm lucky enough to have um, started late enough that, you know, the novice class is a thing.
Yeah.
Because when I was training a little bit with Jeff Lundberg in 2008, 2009, there would not have been a class that I could have competed at and actually got a rep at any event. And now the sport has got to this place where it's feeding itself by having novice classes and weight classes and women's classes. And I think that you know, that's really good for the sport. I wouldn't have got involved if there wasn't a novice weight class or a novice class. A lot of people wouldn't have got involved.
Yeah. And with the weight classes and the different divisions, you know, the first time I went to Florida to compete in the online strongman games, and I was blown away. You know, we got 300 athletes under one roof from every division, and they're stacked. You know, these guys are amazing. My last Worlds that I went to for Masters, you know, was the biggest stack group that was there. I mean, they had the open class, but we had so many big names in my group that it was so overshadowed everything else. The female class, you know, women setting world records at this competition, and it was just amazing. It was just unbelievable to see, and to see how well run it is. When you got 4 events set up side by side, like a deadlift ladder, and you're racing and you see all that weight at the same time, it's a huge production for a show. And, you know, those guys have really gone out of the way to start something throughout the world I don't think you could match it right now. And so, no, we have that competition on hold right now, but our qualifier here for the weight classes and for that qualifier. So basically, whoever wins each class is going to go to that competition. And I can't express enough how amazing of a show it is. Like, it's just unbelievable. And I'm hoping that the way the world is kind of relaxes a little bit and people get to actually experience that. Yeah, it's definitely would push you as an athlete to be involved in that to a level that you don't even realize.
So to wrap up, um, what is the single thing that you've done in strongman that you're the most proud of?
A single thing.
One thing.
Geez, I've done a lot. I'd have to say, geez, you know what? I don't know if there's one moment that I can, because every time I think of something, I think of something else that overshadows it.
Yeah.
Um, the thing that I wouldn't ever change was, and I wish people could experience. Unfortunately, it's gone now, and I don't know if anyone will ever get to experience it again. But the shows in Gatineau, Quebec, that were run by Hugo Gerard, by far, without question, will always be a memory I will never forget. The fireworks going off, 10,000 people chanting for you as an athlete. It doesn't matter where you're from. If you're doing well in a contest, they're chanting for you. So saying that, a memory just popped in my head. So they brought in the best guy in North America at the time in the card de lift hold. At the time, I was the best guy in Canada. They put us face to face in front of 10,000 people live on TSN, winner take all basically type thing. And literally it was the longest hold I think I ever did in my life. It was 800 pounds in the handles, and he dropped about 30 seconds before me, and I just kept holding. That standing ovation from the crowd, the family was there screaming. You got top athletes in the world coming over to congratulate you afterwards. I don't think that really experience, that feeling in that moment, can really be matched by anything else. Mainly because the whole thing with it was, I was on Team Canada. I was representing my country, and you got the entire best athletes in Canada, the best athletes in North America, and they're all congratulating you, and they're all you're all in that spotlight. And the family was there. So, and that's the biggest thing with me, is my family's always been involved through the entire thing with me. They're the reason I got back into it this last time. We were actually sitting at the kitchen table, and my kids asked me when I was going to start competing again. And at that time, I had no desire, but because they asked me to, I came back and competed. So it's those type of feelings, knowing that my kids are impressed and that kind of thing. Those are the things that stand out for me.
My favorite part about it is how my kids aren't impressed. They just
Really?
don't care unless I put it on YouTube. If I put it on YouTube, uh, if I put it on YouTube, then I put YouTube on the TV and let them find it.
Yeah.
That's when they're impressed. So I'll take my videos from the competitions and I'll just put them on my own YouTube channel on private and put it on the TV, and they can find it. And
Yeah.
that's what they think is cool.
Well, see, I was lucky in my day, of doing all this stuff. It was aired on TSN, 5, 6 times a week. So my
Yeah.
face was always there. And unfortunately, I'm hoping that someday we'll get back to that. But yeah, it used to be such a production, and, any publicity is great publicity, right? So it's good.
Well, I think now that we kind of had there was a lull for Canadians at the international level, where it was kind of just JF.
Yeah.
He was the only Canadian, and then last March or February, I guess, the Santa Monica
Wow. Okay.
Arnold, and this fucking guy named Maxime Boudreau.
Yeah.
They have no idea how to say his name. Nobody's ever heard of him. He comes out and he smokes the first 3 events. And not only does he smoke the first 3 events, he smokes Martins, Brian Shaw, he smoked Jerry Pritchett, he smoked Rob Kearney, he smoked JF, and now everybody's talking about Maxime Boudreau. He just went to Worlds. He's in Colorado right now, competing at the Brian Shaw show. So I think that's boding well for strongman in Canada.
I think so. Max has always been there, right? I mean, I've competed with Max quite a bit, and he's always been such an athlete. And at the Canadians, he's smoking 3, 4, 5 events out of 8 at the Canadians, but he's still not winning. So he just it's just because the athletes are so well rounded and they have that tight group. So if you finish seventh in one event, you're not going to win. You know, it's
Yeah.
just you have to be top three all the time. And so, yeah, I mean, he's always been there and he's always been right there. But now he's got the opportunity to do these other shows, and now they see him. So now that he's been seen, you know, I expect massive, massive things from him. He's so strong. It's
Yeah.
crazy the foot speed and stuff that he possesses, and his shoulder power is amazing as well.
Yeah. I mean, he's a mid 400 log guy. His yoke is really good. His moving events are really good. Uh, the sky's the limit. I think he's relatively young. I don't think he's 30 yet.
I don't think so.
Uh, yeah, it just looks uh, uh, it looks good for Canadian strongman, I think.
I absolutely, like I said, I'm glad that he was finally noticed, because yeah, all it takes is that one show, and now that he's been seen, now he'll get his foot in the door for many, many contests, and I think if given the chance years ago, I think that he'd be above where he is now. I think
Yeah,
the opportunity just wasn't there for him.
yeah. And I mean, there is, even going back to the Arnold Santa Monica consistency.
Yeah,
Like, you don't have to win every event. You can come in second or third every event and win. If you come second or third in every event at World's Strongest Man, you know what you are?
yeah,
You're World's Strongest
exactly.
Man.
That's right.
So, I think he brings up his weaknesses. Uh, he brings up his weaknesses just a little bit, and we're talking about Maxime Boudreau being a podium finisher at World's Strongest Man.
Oh, definitely. It definitely comes down to events. The events are there for him. You take a front deadlift out, put a side deadlift in, he's right there with the best of
Yeah.
them. So
Um, what is your favorite event to train and compete?
now it's yoke. Yoke is my favorite event to train and compete. Um, Before it was shook pressing. Any upper body movement was always my favorite. Now it's truck pull and super yoke. Those are my two favorite to train. When I train truck pull, I do 10 sessions of truck pull, and I do 10 sessions like I'm going to do it in a competition, and that's why we had basically the 4 or 5 guys that trained together with us. We were the best truck pullers around because we basically killed ourselves pulling trucks. And if we can do it 10 times, then once is going to be super easy, right? So the recovery of it and stuff, and it's a great workout. It's a great exercise, and you're pulling a big old truck behind you, so it looks good.
If you could take one event and just ban it from strongman, never have to do it again, what would it be?
Oh, arm over arm. I absolutely hate it. I don't know why I hate it. I've never been able to master it.
Yeah.
And back in 2007, it's when I ruptured my bicep tendon on pulling the medieval apparatus up on the pulley system. Things like that. It's just between that and the Conan's wheel, I think, are the two I would never put back in. More so, if I had to actually pick one of the Conan's wheel, I think is worse than the arm over arm.
All right. I think this is a good spot to end. We've been talking for almost an hour. So Grant, thank you very much for coming on the show. Hope to see you again in the new year at some competitions. Like I said, there very easily could be 10, 12, 13 competitions in Atlantic, Canada next year. So
I hope
we'll
so.
be,
It'd be good to get back into it.
yeah. Like I said, I'm going to host New Brunswick Strongest Man in St. John in April. And then, so Renfrew, the past 2 years, has done something in late February, March. So hopefully they do the same. And then I'm hosting one in April. And then, Atlantic Canada Strongest Man, Pictou County Strongest Man. Hopefully Raw Power does another one. Hopefully Prime Strength does another one. And 2021 should be a good year for strongman in Atlantic Canada.
Hopefully so. I'd love to see it get back to at least partly where it used to be. Not necessarily. I mean, the caliber of athletes now are so much better. Now we just need to get the competitions back.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Thank you very much.
hey, thank you.